Charlie Kirk was murdered, assassinated. I heard the governor, who seemed like a nice guy, say that the killer was solely responsible for the murder of Charlie Kirk, for the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and they also, he and others, mentioned the fact that we can have civil discourse, which I agree with, and I have civil discourse towards that statement, because that guy was not solely responsible for the murder of Charlie Kirk. I have been listening and watching TV, just like us all. We watch the news. We watch the rhetoric. I watched Tim Walz last week, hoping that Trump was dead, and then it'll happen soon. That was a call to arms. That was a call to arms. I've watched MSNBC and CNN call me, who's got all kinds of friends I grew up with, black, white, whatever. Since I'm a white male conservative, I must be a racist. I'm not a racist. It's ridiculous. Racist, homophobe, whatever, It's all crazy. They're crazy. CNN, constantly pounding. Fascist, Hitler, evil, demon. All MSNBC, Rachel Maddow and all of them. They all say it. They're rehashing the Civil War and slavery from 200 years ago like it happened yesterday. And like it didn't happen all over the world, They've been beating the drum of hatred and evil and Hitler, Hitler? You're calling Trump Hitler? Hitler killed millions of people, along with a lot of others. There's others that killed millions of people. It's insane. Because we believe, we want a country. So this guy, he went around, like I've heard before, conversations, positions. He had positions that up until 5 years ago were mainstream, There are two genders. There are two sexes. I'm sorry, I wrote a letter, a while ago to CVS, because they were doing the whole gender dysphoria, drugs, and the bathrooms, and they were just jumping on the leftist train, and it's so harmful. And I wrote a letter. I haven't drank in a lot of decades, and I've watched people. I watched the pharmaceutical opiate giveaway decade when they just gave the shit away, and the pharmacists took the prescriptions and gave them to whoever the doctor prescribed the opiate to. And the doctors got kickbacks. And then I watched, and it's just insane. I watched the ADHD medication giveaway. There's nothing wrong with our children. The psychiatric profession is insane. And then we had the Ritalin giveaway, and kids are peddling it in everywhere, and teachers are going in. I had my primary care physician tell me teachers go in and say to the doctors that the kid needs to be prescribed medication. We weren't prescribed medications, We didn't chop our dicks off. I'm sorry, Every once in a while we got a tattoo. It's crazy. They're all nuts. I'm sorry. I hold steadfast to my beliefs. There are two genders. There's an XY chromosome and an XX chromosome, and like it or not, it's just insane. It's you gotta. I started going to church not because I was the greatest Christian in the world, but because I started seeing evil. So they gave away the opiates. Now we have millions dying from fentanyl, because when they gave away the opiates, I'm jumping around, but when they gave away the opiates, then the government came in and put a stop to that and prosecuted some doctors, made an example of some doctors, and shut down the pharmacy gravy train of opiates. So what did the young people who were already hooked on them do? They went and got heroin. And now it's fentanyl. And they're dying. I have a nephew dying on the streets of Philadelphia right now by marriage. And I watched them walk into the rooms of AA, and then they did it with the amphetamines. Like I said in my letter, Ritalin is just meth. They tweak it. They change the molecule by some small strand and call it something else and patent it and make it into something else. ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive. That's every kid in the country. What the hell's wrong with you people? Send them out to run around, And then COVID came, and they put these kids, they shut them up inside their houses. And I go back to the analogy. This has been the worst treatment of young people in the history of, I believe, mankind. It's akin to human sacrifice. In several areas, but then so they shut the kids up inside for I forget how long, a year and a half, and here's what I got to tell you. As an adult, you should be ashamed of yourself for just dismissing that, because think about when you were 10 years old, how long your summer was, and how long your summer was of pure energy, joy, adventure, free time, running in the woods, whatever you did, whatever your thing was, It was forever, and it was only 10 weeks. They shut them up for a year and a half. Think about how long a school year was in second or third grade. Think about that. It was an eternity. It wasn't a winter. It was an eternity. To me, when September school started, there was no end in sight. I mean, there was no end in sight. The last 5 minutes, and we've talked about this before, the last 5 minutes on the hand of that clock of the last day of school took forever. And you shut these kids up inside, you sick fucks, for a year and a half in front of a computer with God only know who talking to them. And they came out so screwed up. I wrote that in my letter. It's going to be, I'll post my letter someday. The manifestations, the ripple effect of those 2 years have only just begun. The horrors and tragedies have only just begun. Some kids made it through. Depends on the parents. If there was one parent at home, or if a parent had the advantage of being a teacher, or there was a large family of children where they could interact amongst themselves. But small families that had to work 2 jobs, those kids are history. They've been destroyed. To what? You want to you want to know why they did it? Because they don't vote. They did it to save. I'm 64. I was, pretty much under the probability line of it being a threat to my life, unless I was really unlucky. I mean, 80-year-olds die of the flu, But we tortured our children to save grandma. To there's something wrong with that, we all have to make hard choices. When you think back about, and there could have been ways to protect senior citizens other than incarcerating our youth. There could have been other ways. So that's my spin on that, And now we have these tragedies. We have there's two kinds of tragedies I see coming out of the left. There's the soft on crime tragedy. There's my friend Kevin Ludwig's 18-year-old niece getting shot in the head by what they called a stray bullet in Tennessee at her Christian college about a year ago. Beautiful surfer girl, guitar player at church. She had her head blown out by a guy who did it, who a year before, 1 year before, shot into an automobile with a pistol that had a woman and 2 children in it. And he was walking the streets. I don't know about you, but that happens. They can get away with that in the city. Do you know what would happen if I shot into an automobile in my little hometown with a mother and 2 kids in the car? I'd never see the light of day. And I shouldn't ever see the light of day. Ever. So Jillian Ludwig, she's a victim of liberalism. That girl in Charlotte, stabbed in the neck by a lunatic, evil bastard. The kids, and it gets worse. The Nashville murdering transsexual. How dare you not bring transsexual into the probability of having something to do with that horrible crime? Gender dysphoria is a disorder. It's not something to be encouraged. So we have a girl who, I don't know, I watched enough of it they never even discussed testosterone. They had detectives come on. There's nothing to see here. What am I, stupid? Was she on testosterone when she went out and killed a bunch of children at the bequest of the messages of the agnostic, satanic, godless left? Telling them that Christians are horrible people. It's horrible. So was she on testosterone? I don't know. I've watched enough. I watched Crowder and others, and I don't really have that information. But I know that I had a buddy who, growing up, my friend Pete, God rest his soul, that did a lot of steroids, and hormones when he was a power lifter, and he openly talked about roid rage. So you give a girl that's never had testosterone in her body, other than in very, very small trace amounts. You give testosterone, which males have had to grow accustomed to with aggression and we were weaned into testosterone through our puberty and into adulthood and by our culture, and we kind of keep things in check, So you give a girl who's never had testosterone that ideology, that sick ideology, and the message that went along with it, that if you didn't support transsexuals, you were killing transsexuals. That was the message, and still is the message from the left. So you pump her up with a bunch of male hormones, tell her that we're out to get her, tell her Christians are evil, and she goes and kills a bunch of kids. Minnesota, same exact thing. Blood on MSNBC's hand, blood on CNN's hand, blood on the psychiatric profession's hands. Damn the psychiatric profession, in my opinion. It's worse than lobotomies. Um, so we have that. And then we have Charlie Kirk, you know. We have people on the internet celebrating it. I know people. I know how sick the left is. I know how what's the word? How diabolical they can be. I have people very close to me. I know a person, I certainly won't mention her name. I've known her for 64 years. That squirmed with delight, mind you, at the Las Vegas shooting, because she, in her head, saw them as conservative cowboys when, I don't know how many, 40 or 50, the largest mass murder in the history of the United States took place. They covered that one up for some reason. Yeah, we're living in a world where I don't know, it's bad. So I hold CNN responsible for that murder, for Charlie Kirk's death. I hold MSNBC responsible. I hold the Ivy Leagues responsible. I hold the feminists responsible in some ways, you know. It's just terrible. You know, we got to get back to, we have to get back to foundational principles, or we're doomed. And it's just, it's hard to watch, you know. And, but it's good to see people losing their jobs for squirming with glee, and you know, they're so. I read one where they said, somebody wrote about the Minnesota, and we don't even know about the 17. 2 kids were killed, but you know, we don't even know about the 17 others. We don't know where the holes went through, if they can walk, if they're paralyzed, blind, maimed for life, physically and emotionally. They like to reduce it just to the deaths, you know. The dead are hard, but what they should do is, well, what they can't, but they need to, somebody needs to talk about the victims that didn't die, because they seem to be swept away like they didn't even exist, you know. It's bad. I have so much to say, you know. It's so disgusting. Kids went to schools ruined by colleges. You got to be nuts to send your kid to a college today. You lose them for life. They're indoctrinated, and they go. They're gone. And it's not even like you can bring them back, you know. They steal your children. They steal them through ideology. And it's bad. Yep. What else? Oh, yeah, tomorrow there's big goings on in the United Kingdom with the shit hitting the fan over there. You know, I could talk about other things, but I'll be just jumping around like I already am. So it's just too much, you know. So where do we go from here? One thing I damn sure won't do, and I don't think any of us should do, is sugarcoat it. You know, you got to tell the truth. You know, that's why that governor didn't sit well with me when he said the only person responsible is the perpetrator, the Robinson kid, was it, or something, that murdered Charlie? That's not true. That kid didn't do that alone. You know, they even say, I mean, the politicians say hit people over the head. They celebrate deaths. Walsh, Thank God we don't have that son of a bitch as a vice president. My God. He's over there celebrating. Trump's a businessman, you know. I voted for him twice, 3 times. I don't, some of what he says I disagree with. I don't know whose influence. I'm a little worried about some of the foreign policy. But, that we were in deep on that shit with Ukraine and before he ever took office, So I think we should all speak the truth and call despicable, disgusting, insightful people. I am not inciting others by calling people despicable, insightful people. I'm responding to them. I'm not. If they call for it's to all my conservative friends and those who have taken the red pill. I tip my hats to the Sage Steels of the world, and I see so many black podcasters. I watch them all. And I'm proud. I'm so proud of these guys, and not just the black ones, but in particular I watch. Of course, I watch Glenn Beck, and I watch a lot of different people. I watch all kinds of people when I have the time. But I hope that what I'm seeing holds true, because if what I'm seeing holds true, the African American community is going to hate those soccer mom liberal leftist women that I have grown up with for 100 years, because they deserve it. They deserve to be in the dustbin of history. They're that movement. It's horrible. So let's all pray for Charlie. Call them out when they're out of line every single time, and don't watch them. Don't give them clicks. Don't give them clicks. Don't go on CNN. Don't even click once on MSNBC. Don't even play the New York Times crossword puzzle. Don't give them anything. Put them in a vacuum, a void of viewership, and maybe they'll go away eventually. Thanks. Bye.